Today for our writing lesson, we are going to be working on writing a story. It's been a little while since we've done this, so hopefully we will enjoy being really creative and coming up with some great ideas for our story today. So I have given you a story starter, so I'll pop it up on screen now and let's have a read of that together. Flying is supposed to be fun, right? Poppy often dreamed about what her first flight would be like. She imagined it would be like being a bird, free and weightlessly drifting through the clouds. The first part of the journey had been exactly as she hoped it would be. Jasper agreed, signalling his agreement or enjoyment by barking enthusiastically from the co-pilot seat. Things were about to take a drastic turn for the worse. Okay, so we can see that there's actually some great VCOP in that little story starter. We've started off with a rhetorical question, and we've got some amazing vocabulary such as free and weightlessly drifting through the clouds. We've used a simile like being a bird. Jasper agreed, signalling his enjoyment by barking enthusiastically. That's some great description in there. And then we've got our ellipsis to sort of say, ooh, what's going to happen next at our things we're about to take a drastic turn for the worst. So that is the story starter you're going to be using. You can have a look at the photo as well. We've got little Jasper and Poppy there in the plane. It doesn't necessarily need to be them. You can make them different in your head. She could be a grown-up and it could be a different type of dog, but it would be a bit strange if it was a human that was barking. So we are going to find out what happens next to Poppy and Jasper. So when we have a story, we have our beginning, our middle and our end. And that's fine, and it's great, especially when we're down the scale and we say like this happened, then this happened, then this happened. But now we're in primary 6, we're trying to push ourselves a little bit more to increase the depth of our stories. We all know that the books that we love the most are the ones that have twists and turns and lots of unexpected events. So we're going to start trying to build those in to make our stories a little bit deeper. So what I'd like you to do now is you're going to have a piece of paper, and as we go through this video, I'll ask you to pause so you can plan certain parts of your story, and then hopefully when you're done, you can just get on with the writing task. But first of all, first kind of reaction, what is going to happen next? You don't need to stick with this, I just want you to write down in your head, first thing you thought of, what was going to happen next. Okay, so hopefully you should have something. If you don't, we're going to talk a little bit more about how you could help us to find some more things. So if we look at the slide now, we've got a few questions that might help you come up with some ideas if you're finding it hard. So what do you think it is that Poppy and Jasper have seen? Where do you think they got the plane from? What will happen next? Where are they planning on going? Do they get there? Do you think it's hard being a pilot? What does this say about Poppy? What skills does she need to fly the plane? And is it an interesting job, kind of, and why? And all of those things might just get your cogs turning, thinking, okay, oh, if she got the plane because of this, because she needed to go here, oh, this could be what was happening. But again, it needs to be your ideas. An example that I could come up with is, they're flying through the sky and all of a sudden there's a massive flash and then everything looks different. All the colours are different. The sky is green and underneath her is not the planet Earth. She doesn't know what planet it is, but she's running out of fuel and she needs to land. What's she going to find there? So that might be something that I would come up with, but you'll, I'm sure, have lots and lots of different ideas that you can use. Now, if we look at this slide here, this is going to help us plan a few great words and phrases to use in our story. So, can you make a list of feelings that Poppy might be experiencing in the plane? For example, shocked, excited, or nervous. So pause me and write down as many emotion words, just like from emotion marks, as you possibly can. Okay, hopefully you've got a really nice long list of some amazing vocabulary that you can use throughout. Now think about some sentences that we could use these in, and I want you to use them at the start of the sentence. So I want you to do 3 sentences that talk about how Poppy, or Jasper actually, would be fine is feeling. So the example here is shocked. Poppy gasped as she noticed that it was now flying next to them. So terrified, Jasper let out a loud howl as they entered the thick cloud. You can see that those emotion words are used as our openers of our sentences. So pause me and do 3 sentences using one of your emotion words as an opener or in your sentence. Okay, so hopefully you should now have an idea of what's going to happen in your story. Now, it was your first impression. if you're thinking, I don't love that idea, you could pause me now, go back and just write a quick, and I literally mean like a few words, just to keep it straight in your head what's going to happen. So first, second, kind of twist, plot twist, and then how we're going to solve it at the end. But let's have a look at this document now, which is a little bit of a plan on how to write a good story. So you'll see that we start with number 1, which is the opening. Now we don't need that because we've got it. So you're going to use the opener that we've got and you're going to continue it. I have popped the text on the document on the assignment, so if you want to just keep typing on that document, that's absolutely fine, or you can obviously write it out yourself. If you're writing out your story, you don't need to copy the whole thing out. I'll know that's how the story starts. You can if you want, but you don't have to waste time doing that. Just write your own piece and upload the photo. So let's look at number 2, the build-up. So we want to develop suspense. Say, little did she know what was going to happen next, and then all of a sudden, things started crackling around her ears. Poppy's head whipped round. She didn't know what was going on. Jasper was crying and whining. Something was about to happen, she just didn't know what. So you can see by adding that detail and sort of creating the suspense for the characters, you're also making the reader think, oh my goodness, what's going to happen, what's going to happen? Building the problem up. And then you need to come up with your problem. So you need to have something go wrong or something interesting happen that either needs fixed or solved, or that there's a consequence from. Because if you don't have that, you're just describing things that are happening. It's not a story. It has to be exciting and interesting. So think about, what is the problem? Is the plane going to crash? Is she going to land on a different planet? Is she going to shrink? Is she going to turn into a giant? It could be whatever you fits in with your story, but you need to have some kind of an issue or a problem in there for her to deal with, and that's going to be our story. So think about, how do the characters react? Show the characters' feelings through what they say and do. Use action words or action verbs, so doing words. Vary the sentence length. If it, you can use long sentences and then a shorter sentence to show something was dramatic. So for example, Poppy looked around and around, she couldn't see anything as she hit the controls over and over again. Boom. So you can see that long sentence and then the short sentence of just boom. There's a real something's changed because the length of the sentence has changed, and you'll notice that that is something that is in your writing targets for second level, using different length sentences. So that's a great way to do it. So I want you to pause me now, and I want you to write a really clear description. It doesn't need to be long, just a sentence, of what the problem is going to be. Really specific, okay? Get it down on paper. Okay, now we're going to talk about how we solve the problem. Do all stories have to have a happy ending? Absolutely not. Does it have to be a neat and tidy ending where, they all end up happy? No, there might be things that are good and things that are not so good, or things that they regret. That's absolutely fine, and that shows a deeper understanding of what a story is really like, rather than that fairy tale happily ever after. So, but the story needs to feel like it's done, so you need to solve the problem. So say, for example, the plane was falling out of the sky. What's going to happen? She's going to fight to save the plane, I'm sure. Is it going to end happily or sadly? You need to describe it. Either way, it's got to get solved. Either the plane's got to crash or she's got to save the day. You might even want to have a twist in that she manages to save the day a few, but then she's landed somewhere really dangerous and then there's another problem. So it's like the twist in the story. You need to think carefully about how it's going to get solved. And then finally, you've got your conclusion, the kind of what's going to happen next. Now, you could leave that on a rhetorical question. Poppy had landed, she looked around, and she was in a rainforest with tribes staring at her holding spears. She looked at Jasper. She had no idea what they were going to do next, but all they knew is they were still alive. They were going to have to think of something. And then you could kind of stop it there on that cliffhanger, but just making sure you've already got enough in the story to chunk it out. Think of it almost like a chapter where you want it to feel done, but you kind of want the potential for a bit more information, just to sort of make people thinking, what might happen next? So try and link the end into the beginning. Maybe you could use that first rhetorical question at the start. You could maybe try and build that in towards the end as well, that link from the start to the end. You could leave it on a cliffhanger or build up to the next thing. So, like landing in the rainforest, something else is happening. You could put a twist at the end where she thinks she's landed safely, but then all of a sudden, the plane bursts into flames or something like that. Or again, that finished with a question, so that would link quite well with the rhetorical question point. So pause me now and come up with how you're going to solve the problem and how you're going to leave your story. Again, just really brief bullet points. What I just want you to have is a real clear understanding of what's happening in your story before you start writing. So you've already got the opener, you've then thought about the build up and the problem, then you're going to think of how you're solving it and how you're ending your story. So pause me and do that in your bullet points. Okay, so hopefully now you should have a plan for your story. So I want you to get started thinking carefully about our VCOP. Now I have popped the targets for you on the assignment. The way I've done it is I have put a mild, a medium and a spicy set of targets. Now the spicy set of targets are the end of second level. So if you're quite confident with your writing, you're really wanting to achieve or go past those targets, if writing something you find quite tricky, make sure you're hitting the mild targets. They're going to help you to get the things into your writing that you need. And if you're in the middle, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm doing pretty good, you're choosing the medium targets to try and push yourself on a little bit towards meeting the end of second level. So please look at the writing targets. I put them on every week we do writing and they get ignored so often, and I'm seeing, I'll put in there like use a metaphor. There's no metaphors. They're there for a reason. The criteria I use to assess you against to make sure you've achieved what you need to achieve are the writing targets that I give you. So you need to make sure you're building these things into your writing for me, please. So I can't wait to read all about your ideas of what's going to happen to Poppy and Jasper on the plane.